Right, let me show you how I color graded the DJI Action 5 Pro D-Log-M low-light shot you just saw in Davinci Resolve. I'm mainly going to use the built-in tools in Davinci Resolve Studio just to make it as easy as possible for you guys to replicate what I'm going to show you in this video. So first of all, here are my project settings. I'm using Davinci with Gamut Intermediate Color Space, and then my output color space is set to Rec. 709 Type A because I'm using a Mac computer. In terms of the node tree, I've already applied this simple node tree structure. If you want to get the same node tree, you can either pause the video, take a screenshot, and copy the exact nodes I'm using with your shots. Or if you want to support this channel, I'm also going to provide a link down below for my power grades for you to check out. Now, let me go node by node, explain to you why I have these nodes, and then I'm gonna try to make this shot look as best as I can with the built-in tools in Davinci Resolve. So first of all, for the IDT, which is the input device transform, and then the ODT. The IDT takes me from DJI Action 5 Pro D-Log-M to Davinci with Gamut Intermediate. I got this DCTL from Kaur Hendrickson, which is completely free. By the way, I'm going to leave his video about this down below, and you can download this DCTL if you want to. But this basically correctly mathematically converts my D-Log-M footage from the Action 5 Pro to Davinci with Gamut Intermediate without me having to guess how much contrast I have to put and saturation to make D-Log-M look normal. And now for the output device transform, I'm using a costume DRT from JP2499. I've made a whole video about this. If you want to watch it, I'm going to leave it up here. And also, if you want to download this DRT for yourself, I'm going to leave a link for it down below. It is completely free. And basically, this DRT takes me from Davinci with Gamut Intermediate to Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4 because as of now, my display color space is set to Gamma 2.4. All right, first thing I'm going to do, because I shot this in low light and there is significant amount of noise in the shot, as you can see, lots of grain and like artifacts, I am going to apply noise reduction with the built-in tools. And to do that, I'm going to use this first node in here, which I put prior to the IDT. And that's because I want to attack the noise as early as possible in the node tree to have a good starting point. So I'm going to enable this node, go to the motion effects in here, set the frames to 2. This thing in here I'm going to set to better. And then I'm going to play around with this slider in here until I see it creates a dramatic difference. And then I'm going to slightly go back just to preserve some detail in the shot, because if I'm going to put this to like 100%, as you can see, it makes like everything look plasticky and fake. So this is the before and after, before and after. So I want to kind of find the sweet spot between reducing the noise while keeping the detail, as detailed as possible. So I think I'm gonna use this guy's t-shirt as a reference. I'm gonna go back to here to 0, and then I'm gonna start going up until I see a dramatic difference, which is about here, I would say. So let's set it to like 25. And I'm going to do a before and after, before and after. As you can see, it slightly cleans up the, the noise on his shirt and in here as well. Before, after, and it still keeps, a slight amount of detail in the shot. And also I'm gonna use this special noise reduction. I'm gonna set it to enhanced, and I'm gonna do the same thing basically here with the sliders. I'm gonna go up until I see it makes a dramatic difference, which I would say is about here. Yeah, like 40. But I'm gonna put it to like 35 just to be safe. And again, this is the before and after, before and after, before and after, before and after. As you can see, you do lose some detail, especially in the dark areas of the frame, but I want the shot to be cleaner than having more detail. It's going to be up to you to decide whether you want more detail or less noise in the shot. All right, next thing I'm going to do is probably apply a look and then color correct my shot underneath that look. And to apply the look, I'm going to use the Film Look Creator, which is a built-in tool in Davinci Resolve Studio. It is not available in the free version. If you are using the free version, you can check out down below my Action 5 Pro LUTs and use that instead if you want to, or you can just apply any LUT you like from your favorite creator and whatnot. But I'm going to use Film Look Creator. So I'm going to use this node in here, which is for Film Look Creator. I've already applied it to this node, but it's set to clean slate, which means it doesn't really do to the shot anything. As you can see, if I do like turn it on and off the node. So I'm gonna go to these presets in here, and then I'm gonna select cinematic. That's one of the best ones to use in here, but I'm going to customize it slightly. First of all, I'm going to change the core look to something else. Let me see, Akasaka, elated, vintage. I think I'm gonna go either Rochester or Akasaka. Let's go with Rochester. Then all of these sliders in here I'm gonna set to default. Just reset everything. Then I'm gonna take the split tone and turn it off. The vignette, I'm actually gonna leave it on and set it to full intensity, just because it makes the shot look more interesting right away. Halation I'm going to disable. Bloom I'm going to disable. Maybe later on I'll add it if I want to. Grain I'm going to also disable. Flicker I'm going to disable. Gate weave I'm going to disable. And then finally film gate I'm going to disable, which is the black bars in here at the top and bottom. Okay, so now we basically got a good starting point. This is the before and after, and maybe it's a bit too strong, so I'm going to go to the global blend option in here and just set it to like 0.7. So now it's a bit less intense, and again, this is the before and after, just gives me a good starting point to, you know, start color grading the shot exactly how I want to. All right, so I think next I'm going to correct the exposure and white balance. I'm gonna set the frame to about here. I feel like this is a good balanced, you know, area of the shot. When I go to my prime erase, use the color wheels, specifically the offset wheel, and I'm going to bring it up because it's a bit, you know, too low on the exposure. I'm gonna put it to somewhere around here. And then I've set the pivot in here to 0.336, which is the middle grade for Davinci Intermediate. And then I'm going to use the contrast slider in here just to add a bit more contrast. I would say 1.1 is going to work just fine. And I feel like this is good enough. Maybe it's a bit too hot. Slightly reduce it, something like that. Now I feel like it is good. Let's do a before and after, before, after, before, after, before, after. I feel like it looks a little bit better right now. Next, I'm going to use this balance node in here to adjust the white balance. I've set this node's gamma to linear just to give me a more photometric way to adjust the white balance in the image. And I'm only going to use the gain wheel in the color wheels in here to adjust the white balance. So basically, as of now, from like eyeballing it, it looks a bit red and also too blue. So I'm going to subtract red just to remove slightly the redness. And also I'm going to subtract blue to add a bit of yellow, because naturally this shot should have a bit of yellow in the frame from all these yellow street lights. Maybe I'm going to balance it out with the green. They play around with the red. I feel like something like this is okay. Let's do before and after, before and after. I feel like it reduced the red slightly and cleaned up also the blue, especially from the shadows. All right, next thing I'm going to do is remove some of the disgusting magenta tint that is going on in this frame, especially if you look here, right? Do you see this? This is usually what you see when you use something like an action camera in low light. You'll see like magenta artifacts, and that's because these cameras can't really, you know, get all the color information like full frame cameras and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try my best to remove this without introducing artifacts, because you want to be careful with something like this. If you push it too much, you're going to see some artifacts. I'm going to try to do my best, you know, to avoid that. To do this, I'm going to use this hue node in here, and I'm going to go to the new tool in Davinci Resolve 20, which is the color warper. And this basically allows you to do the same thing as the hue versus hue curve in here. Right? Change the color, but also at the same time, it will allow you to change the saturation, but in a more clean way. Basically, you'll be able to change the color while keeping the image relatively clean. It is much better in terms of like keeping the color, the image clean, than using the curves or even using the color slice tool in here. So I'm gonna use this tool. You want to set it to the qualifier, and then you basically want to go to the color that you want to affect. In this case, it's this magenta nastiness, and I'm going to just press and hold, and then you can, you know, change the color around or reduce the saturation. And I'm going to heavily reduce the saturation here and maybe shift it towards like blue, which looks a bit more pleasing than this magenta. Let's zoom out a little bit, go around here as well. Just play around with this until I remove the majority of it. Maybe shift it towards like yellow actually, just to make it a bit more clean. And also I'm gonna go to this car, and as you can see, there's like a nasty color going on in here. Let me play around with this just to make it a bit cleaner and make the car look more white than magenta. And I feel like this is good enough. It is not perfect, that's because this is action camera footage. But if I'm going to do a before and after, before and after, there is a significant difference in my opinion, especially if you look on his shirt. Now it looks relatively clean. If I'm going to disable this, you'll see all this magenta and purple nastiness. And same thing goes for this car. Look at this car right now. And if I'm going to enable this node, it looks much cleaner. Maybe I'm going to slightly reduce the amount of yellow in here. Just play around with this. You want to be very careful with this because, especially with like action camera footage, because you can easily break, you know, the image basically. So I'm just playing with this. I'm gonna go here. Just don't like the way these blacks look like. I feel like something like this is kind of okay. I mean, it is significantly cleaner. It's not totally clean. I can still see all this nastiness in here, but I guess it's from the lights from the car. So I still want to kind of keep some of this just to make it look more natural. But at least the majority of it is gone from the white on the car here, before and after. Actually, let me put it a bit more. And then also from this guy's t-shirt. Okay. I'm also going to play around with the blues, the blue color specifically. I can see some blue in here, and maybe I'm going to clean it up a little bit. Desaturate this blue, because it's a bit too strong for me. Let me just zoom out, do a before and after. And yeah, it looks much cleaner to me. Let me zoom in a little bit more, do a before and after, before and after. All right, next, I'm going to fix the skin tones. If I'm going to pause the video right here, you'll be able to see the skin of this guy. And just to make it a bit more exaggerated, I'm going to use the saturation node, which I've set its color space to HSV. I disabled also the channel 1 and 3. And this allows me to add beautiful saturation with the gamma wheel in color wheels or the gain wheel. Just going to bring up the gamma wheel just to add more saturation to the skin. And maybe desaturate it slightly with the gain just to make it a bit more balanced. And then, do you see this node in here? It's named Guide. Inside this node, I have a custom DCTL from Pixel Tools, which is completely free. By the way, I'm going to leave a link for it down below. And this DCTL has lots of like checkers to see, you know, false colors, skin checker, white balance, like if you want to see neutrals in terms of like white balance, middle gray, negative checkers, and then you can also do a split view if you want to, just like so. I'm mainly going to use the skin checker just to see if my skin tone is accurate, and usually if it's mainly yellow, it looks good. Green is going to be more lean towards the yellow color, and then red is going to be more towards the red. So I'm going to go to the skin node in here, and again I'm going to use the color warper and just take his skin and shift it towards like yellow, just like so. Gonna still keep a little bit of magenta in there, like red and green, just to keep it a bit more natural, but at least I'm going to make the majority of the skin look as accurate as possible. And if I'm going to disable this guide DCTL, and I'm gonna do with the skin before and after, as you can see, just made his skin look more natural without introducing pretty much any artifacts. Like I said, the color warper is probably the best tool to use when it comes to shifting colors around heavily without introducing any artifacts and stuff like that. But I kind of don't like the color of the road here. Looks a bit unnatural, so I'm gonna go back to the hue and maybe just shift the color around to more bluey color. Not too much, maybe something like this. Right, next I'm going to add a bit of a filmic contrast to this shot just to make it a bit more interesting, and I'm going to use this contrast node in here, and I'm going to mainly use the curves because it's the best one to use if you want to precisely adjust how much contrast you want. And as you can see, I have here like a point, and this point is for middle gray, just to keep the middle gray as clean as possible, which is usually where skin tones are. I want to keep it as neutral as possible. And the way I know where middle gray is in here is by using this DCTL, again from Pixel Tools, which is completely free. As you can see, it just gives you like a gray image, basically middle gray for Davinci Intermediate, and you'll see like a spike. And then you can just take a point, you know, on the curve, and you can hold the Option key on your keyboard just to keep the point right in the middle of the curve, and you put it right in the center of the spike, which means now you basically anchored middle gray, and it's going to remain as clean as possible. And now I'm going to compress the highlights about here, I would say, bring back some contrast, and then I'm going to elevate the shadows just to fade in the shadows a little bit, Then I'm going to bring back some contrast as well to the shadows. Maybe add another point in here, balance everything out. I'm going to slightly elevate the shadows in here and here. And now I feel like it's more than good enough. This is the before and after, before and after. Basically added contrast to the shot without really affecting the low shadows or the high highlights, and also without really affecting the middle gray, which is again usually where skin tones are going to be in the frame. All right, I feel like as a final touch, I'm going to add a split on effect just to have a much bigger difference between the shadows and highlights. I feel like this shot is already looking much better than what we started with, but just to add a final touch, let's do a split tone. I'm going to use this split node in here, and also as you can see here, I added some anchors. I put this point in here just to keep the blacks as black as possible. I'm also going to add a point in the whites just to keep the white as clean as possible, and I have the same point in here for the middle gray, then another point in here and in here just to keep the middle gray as clean as possible without introducing too much color when I'm going to, you know, change the color of the shadows and also the highlights. Now I'm going to unlink all these channels in here, go to the red channel, and because I want to add a bit of, you know, coolness, like a cold color in the shadows, I'm going to subtract red, which is going to introduce cyan in the shadows. So something like this. Let me put it around here. And as you can see, because I anchored the middle gray and the blacks, it adds these colors so beautifully without really affecting all the other colors, the dominating colors in the frame. So I'm going to put it somewhere around here. I feel like it's a bit too green, so I'm going to use the green curve and balance it out. Something more bluey in a way. Yeah, something like this looks good. And now maybe I'm going to slightly warm up the highlights by going to the blue curve, introducing some warmth, and then maybe some red, and I'm going to balance it out with the green just to make it a bit more golden looking. Maybe it's a bit too yellow for me, and I feel like something like this is somewhat okay. This is the before and after, before and after. As you can see, it makes, you know, the shadows cooler with cooler tones, and then the highlights with more warmer tones, which adds this beautiful split on contrast between shadows and highlights. But I feel like it's a bit too strong of an effect, so I'm gonna go to this node key and set the gain to like 0.6 just to clean it up a little bit. Maybe also I'm gonna come back to the contrast node in here, just reduce the overall contrast a little bit because I feel like it's a bit too strong. Something like this. And honestly, I feel like I'm pretty much done with this shot. This is pretty much as best as I can make it look with the built-in tools in Davinci Resolve. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video and found it to be informative. I'm going to leave links to everything I've mentioned in this video down below for you to check out. Also, I'm using my Rode Video Micro 2 shotgun microphone as a boomed shotgun microphone for the first time today. So hopefully the audio quality was good enough. Let me know down below what you think. And also today, DJI is going to announce the DJI 360 camera. I'm definitely going to get this camera to play around with. If you have any video ideas, share them down below. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.